Merci. Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar about visual JForex tool strategies, and so we're going to talk about logical blocks using visual JForex. Feel free to raise any question in the chat section. So basically
mathematical blocks. Logical blocks was last week.
Oh, that we're going to talk about mathematical blocks. So anyway, mathematical, logical, we're going to mix them all together and make some examples. Thank you, Gita. Yeah. Cool. So mathematical blocks. So we've got so far 3 blocks dedicated to mathematical condition. The first one is called assign, second one the simple calculation, and the third one is the calculation expression, or I prefer to call it complex calculation. I'm going to start by the assign box. Well, actually, this box is quite practical in terms of use. It is dedicated to assigning values to a certain variable. So if you need to like define a variable as Boolean or integer or whatever the type of this variable, you can use the assign block and put a dedicated value to this to this variable. So let's take an example. I'm gonna create a new variable with type Boolean, and I can tell the system like I'm gonna call it short position, for instance. So if I create a Boolean variable, I can use short position like this, and the assigned value, the assigned variable, actually, it should be used this way, because we've got in here, let's explain correctly. So in here we've got the assigned value and the assigned variable. And the assigned variable, don't switch them together and don't do the mistake like I've made just a couple of seconds ago. You should put your assigned variable in here and assign the value by a simple click in here by true or false, like this. But actually the question could be, how does the system recognize that my short position, this new variable, is related to short position? In this manner, we can use actually either the trade event section under the trade message position. We've got a predefined like variable called position is long. So I can use shukran Sayyid Abdu. You can actually raise any question in English because this webinar is in English, but tomorrow it's going to be in Arabic. So how does the system knows that my position is short or long? I can either use back to the mathematical blocks, right? I'm going to raise another one. I'm going to just take examples, like random examples, nothing related to a specific strategy, but different use of these blocks. So so you can set either, if you want to use your position is long variable, which is actually defined within this system, like this. If it will work, the assigned value, this is like Boolean, that's true, okay. and then I can drag this one in here. Read only variable. Well, this one is quite strange. Let's do it in another way. If I go to the logical condition, let's try to do a simple comparison. In here, if my position, my last trade message, I'm going to try to expand this if block so that we can see the entire variable. If it is false, that means that actually my position is short, is in here, close. I'm gonna delete this one and assign the value true. So this is just an example. What we can do actually with the assign function is to like create triggers, like if certain conditions are verified. Let's take an example of I don't know, if you set an indicator like this, and you've got your EMA indicator, and like for instance, you have a simple condition. If my EMA is like let's say less than the current price, nope, this is not correct because I'm looking for the candle, not the tick. Let's go to the candle. Yep. So value of the EMA is less than the candle close, for instance. And then I can use the assign function under mathematical to create a trigger. Like if this condition is verified, in this case, I will create a new variable. I can call it also like a Boolean type, and can call it trade, okay. And then I would assign a Boolean value like this, true to this trade. So imagine you have a complex strategy with a lot of conditions and not these two simple blocks, and you need to define in each like condition a trigger event. So just a simple way to use it later on, using like later on if condition. If this value is true, then you will proceed with some other flows by using this end. If it is false, then you're going to use this output. Yeah, so this is basically it's quite practical in terms of use. I have, I believe, an example that I've built it last week. So under my strategies, last week there was a good example related to doing like a break in the middle of a strategy based on time. So I started with defining the default instrument, etc., getting the time unit in hours and minutes, and then in here, look, I created a variable and I've called it trade. So I assign to this variable trade the value true, and then I start to compare the current time is like equal to these two conditions. So if the current time is 9:55 till 9:56, I will assign the value false to trade. So that means that I don't want to trade between 9:55 and 9:56 a.m. GMT. And if it is not, the value true should be kept in here because I started to define my trade variable equal to true. And then the value trade, the variable trade will have the value true, and then you can go straight and open position at market. So this is like a trigger. It's quite practical to stop a flow or like trigger it to another flow just by putting an if condition if it is true or false. Yeah, I've made the same thing, but this is called time slot not trading. So I've created another strategy just to trade between just 3 or 4 minutes. And then the flow is basically the same, but I started to assign the value false to my trade. So imagine the system is going to read this variable named trade and then equal to false, and then in here the flow is going to define the current time. Actually, this strategy I've tested it on real time just to double check, but you can either test it on historical, but keep in mind that you're gonna test, yeah, following some specific hours, and don't forget that. So if the time is between 9:42 and 9:43 a.m. GMT, then I'll be able to put this equal in here. I'll assign the value true to trade, and then at the end of the workflow, I'll assign the value false to trade because it's gonna start at exactly 9:42 and then start trading. And once we reach 9:43 a.m. GMT, then the value trade will have the value false. And in here, the workflow is gonna stop. So this was a simple example using a sign. I believe you can, yeah, feel free to raise any questions about the assign box. Even in the forum, there's several examples of mainly complex strategies, but there's simple one like the one I've presented. And the second block that we're going to talk about is related to the calculation. So it's quite very simple, whether you want to calculate prices, time, whatever mathematical variable. This is very, very simple in terms of use. It is like you can either choose between multiply, sum, between subtraction or division. Simply drag and drop your variable, like in this case for my EMA, my output is going to be a price for sure. So let's take an example. If I have an EMA in here, all right, so my current EMA in here is actually a price, correct? So actually the current is equal to 134.82. So when I want to, for instance, trade 10 pips above the current value of the EMA, whatever the value of the EMA is, dynamically, I can just put the value of the EMA and add a second variable 0.0010, for instance, and I'll choose the settings like a sum, and I should create in here a result, so a new variable called my entry price, for example, but without spaces, because we should not, this should be correct, okay? Start value should be 0 as it is a mathematical variable. Alright, so in here I should have, let's try to test it. I'm gonna disconnect this one, connect this one straight, and the settings, yeah, this is correct. We can either, yeah, try to test it in real time, why not? Run, just to have a look on the, yeah, so this is the current, I'm gonna, yeah, this is the current price, the current level of the EMA, and this is my entry price, which is equal basically to 10 pips above the EMA. Check the 34.97 and the previous one is 34.87. So each time it is in real time increasing by 10 pips. This is, we can also calculate time, but keep in mind that in this case, time is like calculated through a specific way. So if you want to say like get the current time, like as we've talked about in here, so we're going to use the get unit time, the get time unit, sorry, block, which is the main function is to retrieve the tick time, the last tick time in terms of hours, and the last tick time in terms of minutes. And the time unit in here is our hours and minutes. So I'm gonna check the hour and the minutes, correct? So just a detail, the system by default is like recognizing the time through a specific format, which is equal to each time you want to define a slot of time, or like I want to trade 1 minute after the current time, for example. 1 minute, you need to define it as milliseconds. So 1 minute is equal to 1 multiplied by 60 multiplied by 1000. So to have the millisecond, sorry, 100. So, which is equal basically to 60,000. So just keep in mind that the system by default will take the Unix timestamp, and if you want to do some calculation based on this, you need also to define your timing through a certain type of millisecond. So just bear in mind this condition. So basically, the assignment, the calculation expression is used, yeah, whatever the condition in here, calculation type, whether you want to multiply or divide or do a subtraction. It's quite user-friendly use, quite simple. I believe I have an example of time calculation, but there's for sure several examples on the forum if you want to like analyze in depth how it's gonna be used. But in here I can the load VFS. In here I believe there's no calculation expression. Yeah, so anyway, just check the forum, and I've seen if you have any issues drop a question, and I've saw actually several examples of calculation based on time. So as I explained to you, just bear in mind that each like variable, or if you want to for instance use the last tick time, I'm gonna drop another block of calculation. Alright, so if you're gonna use the last tick time this way, this format, which is like is based on milliseconds. So if I want to use 1 minute, as I said, 1 minute is actually gonna do the calculation just so 6,000 milliseconds. In here, my result is last time plus 1 minute. I believe the naming is not correct. It's quite, yeah, there's a space. Like this. Alright, so last time plus 1 minute. This, what this basically means. If you want to check in depth, I believe I stored, yeah. If you want to check, this is quite interesting, just converter, time converter. So if you have a stamp like this, like if you use 50, I don't know how this, yeah, so the system will recognize timestamp like this format in here, and I'm gonna just highlight it for you. This is the time format that the system reads, and this is like a human format, so it's according to this timestamp, it is converted to Tuesday 24th of September 2013 at 11:29 GMT and 10 seconds. So if you want to add like 1 minute, just add to this timestamp that the system is going to read your minute converted in milliseconds. So this is just to explain. Then we've got the calculation expression. Basically, it's exactly the same function than calculation, but it works actually like an Excel spreadsheet. So it is quite simple as well. You've got a column, you've got rows, and if you want to add rows, right click. Sorry, if you want to add columns, right click and just add columns like this, and you can actually expand it this way and put your variable, whether you want to type the variable and do, I don't know, the sum of a variable or a complex calculation, or you can use like variable this way. This is my dynamic value of my last EMA, and like this is my price, and I can do a formula without doing this sign of equal, because actually the system cannot read it. That's why we've got this result field error. So no sign equal, just straight to the formula, and I'm gonna check my column A1. I'm gonna multiply it by let A B1, and then I can use parentheses like this, and then I can divide it by, I don't know, A2, let's say, plus B2. Doesn't probably make sense, but it's just a calculation just to show you how to simply use this. So here, keep in mind, result of calculation should be a variable created because the system will need to store the result of this calculation in this new variable. And my complex formula, let's say, complex in some ways, this way. All right, so and then simply connect it to a valid boxes, and gonna try the real time just to show what is the current value of, here is it. So according to my formula, the result is 8.7497, etc. So just a dynamic calculation. I'm gonna see this variable changing, yeah, as you can see, according to the value of the EMA and my entry price, which was set 10 pips above the level of the EMA. So basically, yes, so if you need more, right click, add column, and increase your level of complexity, let's say, of your conditions, and you can do several calculations based exactly on the way that Microsoft Excel works. But it's quite practical to have it inside actually these blocks. It's just quite smart block and very practical in terms of use. Basically, we went through the mathematical blocks, the assign, the calculation, and the calculation expression. Last week we talked about the logical blocks, including the loop viewer, position viewer. I think that I have some interesting examples related to some complex calculation. Yeah, in here we've got several examples of the assign block using Boolean values. So in here we've started to build 3 indicators with several settings, and then first action which was done is to assign the value false to this new variable called we are long. So you start by like this kind of let's say workflow is exactly the same when you want to use the assign and the if condition. So you start by creating a new variable. It's actually your trigger, and to this new variable you assign a value true or false depending on your needs. Start by assigning the value false, let's say, and then you check your workflow. If the workflow that you want to need later on, the condition, whatever these conditions are based on indicators, on prices, on whatever let's say action took on the market. At the end, you tell the system if all these conditions are verified, so assign to my variable the value true. And then you can use it later on, as we said. If this variable is true, then do the following. If this value is not true, then do another, I don't know, close position or or even close, open the other side instead of long go short, or yeah. So in this example, as we said, the value false. We start by assigning the value false to we are long. Same thing at we are short. And then I check using the position viewer my previous one. And if my position long is true, in here I've created, I did not create, in here I've just used the position is long value dedicated to my previous position. And this category in here, this index, this is, as we spoke about this last week, we thought we explained why when we use position viewer we need to store all the information related to a position viewer in a newly created variable, so that the system knows that all this information are stored just in this index. And in here, for my condition if, I've used this variable position long. So back to our assign function. If my position is long related to my previous position, if my previous position is long, then in this case assign the value we are long to true, and logically speaking, if my position is not long, it is short for sure. So in this case you assign the other flow, and then you verify your indicator values, etc. And then you decide later on whether you want to open at market or close your long or short position depending on their size. We want just to show another example of calculation. Signal example, inverted hammer. I believe this one is. This is currently, there's no. There's a calculation expression over here, so we can go through this strategy. Actually, this strategy, the main purpose, or the main subject of this strategy is to define the hammer shape of a given candle. So just to explain what do we mean by a hammer, it's like, as you can see in here, this candle in here where I point could be called as a hammer because the length of the wick is like more than the body, and it is inverted because it's the other way. I mean, it's kind of upside down. So this is called a hammer if we compare it to this shape of candle. So that means, yeah, basically. So this strategy, the purpose of this strategy is to identify these kind of shapes. And as you can see in here, I've used simple calculation box, and using this, previously I started to, this is quite interesting strategy because I've used both assign and calculation expression. So we're gonna go through this strategy. Okay, so in here, I've got a created variable called red body length. So once my red candle is identified, close minus open, etc. So if it is more, etc. So then you will have a red candle, and then you calculate your length of candle. So How do we do this? So in here, you've got the calculation. So candle close, candle open. So we're gonna define this by setting subtraction and this setting like option. Then you will have your red body length, and then once it's done, you're gonna use the high and open. Why we use this? In order to calculate the wick length. The highest value of the candle is actually, this is the high, and then this is the close, because we're gonna talk about a red candle. So I'm gonna calculate from this level to this level. This is my actually wick, and once it is calculated, I've got my variable wick length. I'm gonna use my red body length in here, which is actually in pips, because it's a difference between two prices. I'm gonna add the second parameter in here. I choose to be 4, and here it is my expected wick length. So I need this red body, the length of this red body, I multiply it by 4, and this length is actually, I need to get 4 times the length of the wick than the length of the body. So it's like a simple example, right? So I want this body. So let's take a red candle. Yeah, we can talk about this one. So this body, 4 times this length in here. I need the wick to be 4 times. So at this, basically, yeah, this in here, this level. So, and then you exit your group with like an if condition. If the current wick is less or is greater or equal to the expected wick, then proceed with like trading actions, etc. So in here, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. If we go back to our example, in here I want to check the end time. So I've got the calculation expression in here. So I'm checking my pending position, the creation time of my pending position. I've added to this pending position 10 seconds. So as we told, 10 seconds multiply by 1000 to have the milliseconds, then you will have 10,000. And then you compare the end time with this candle time, and then you decide later on whether you want to close or open position, etc. So in here I've chosen if it is equal, then I'll close. If it is not equal, then I'm gonna wait and open another one. Yeah, so that was an example of use. If you have any question, feel free to raise them in the chat section. Otherwise, we'll be as usually available in our web, in our forum. So thanks for following. We've got, yeah, some minutes if you want to raise any questions. Otherwise, you can, yeah, feel free to post them on the forum, and we'll be pleased to answer you over there. Thanks for following. See you next week. Bye.